Record. We're live with Kimberly Fletcher, who is the president of Homemakers of America. Kimberly, you should take just a second to introduce yourself and then start sharing with us your message. Oh, this is perfect. Yep, it's working. Yep, so just be careful not to maximize, and you can click through your slides and we can see them great.
Okay. Well, this is all new for me, and I will say that technology is not my friend, but I'm trying to build a relationship that works better. So we're going to try this PowerPoint thing and see how it works, because this is going to be my notes for the day. And I'm in Washington, D.C., and today we held our national press conference to release the Declaration of Mothers to the nation, Congress, and the world. And Homemakers for America has been focused on promoting a love of liberty in the homes of America through the Mothers of America since we were founded in 2004. And this today was like a culmination of almost 15 years of work. And it just came at a great time for this connection with International Women's Day, because we have had governors from all over the country sign proclamations recognizing March 8th as International Mothers Influence Day and signing the Declaration of Mothers. So that's pretty awesome. And I think that it's really important that we recognize where the history of this movement came from. And it came from women who were coming together, yes, in a suffragist movement and trying to lift their status as far as the current cultural and political climate went. But their goal was to lift the society, to make it pure, to make it kinder, to be everything that we are. And the women at the time said, if we become something other than what we are, then we may as well stay where we are, because what we have lost what we gain won't be worth what we lost. And so I think as mothers, we have a really profound opportunity to lift this culture, starting in our own home. And that's why I wanted to title my presentation tonight, Mom Altering Moments. I am the mother of 8 children. I am the president and founder of Homemakers for America. I write columns. I'm a columnist for Town Hall and The Blaze. I have a radio show, and I wrote a book, and I'm kind of all over the country. But I will tell you that it really doesn't matter what else I do outside the home. If things aren't working in my home and family, if I don't feel that there's peace and things are going well, then I feel like a complete failure. And I think most of us do, no matter what we do outside our homes. If things aren't working at home, we just don't feel like things are right in our lives and in our world, because that is my world. And so I thought this was a great opportunity to take some of the things that I've learned over the 32 plus years that I have been a mother, and gleaning from other mothers that I have met and my own mother, that has made me not only a better mother, but a better person and a better woman. And I think that's the greatest celebration of International Women's Day, is the contributions that we make to society. So I want to start with a quote by Matthew Vassar. He was the founder of Vassar Women's College, and he said he founded the college because he realized that the mothers of a country mold its citizens, determine its institutions, and shape its destiny. I think that's a very powerful quote. And you know what we do at Homemakers for America is we promote that foundation of liberty and virtue, and that's our signature picture there. But I thought that was just a beautiful picture of a mother sharing her love and mending the culture that she felt was important. So as I was contemplating what I would say, the first thing I thought is I wish that we had a time capsule that could go back and forth. That great movie, time traveling movie that everybody watched and got a kick out of. I loved that movie, Back to the Future. But I like it when they go back to the past. I'd like to go back to the past and take the Kimberly of today and tell the Kimberly of yesterday, or 20 years ago, well, this is what you should know. Because what I've realized is the older I get, the wiser I get, which means I realize how many dumb things I've done in my life. And I'm sure 20 years from now, I'll realize just how many more dumb things I've done. So every day is a learning and growing experience. And I wonder if I had gone back to that person 20 years ago, would the person from my past even listened? And I think that's part of our learning and our growing. So I think a really powerful message to send to all of us moms out there is that we're going to make mistakes. We're not going to be perfect. There is no such thing as perfection in this lifetime. And if we continue to try and measure ourselves against others, then that's what sets us up to fail. And we have the power to achieve anything that is before us. And that whole idea that there's a glass ceiling, I'm just telling you, ladies, there is no glass ceiling. Women can have it all, just not all at the same time. And we need to prioritize our lives and what's most important. And the most important thing is first and foremost our families, because the children that we are raising are going to be the future librarians, teachers, leaders, voters of our nation, of the world. They are going to be the ones who are going to be the future of our country. And I love the quote by Neil Postman where he says, "Children are the living messages we send to a time we will not see." And I wanted to send a certain message, and I think each one of us do. And we need to just decide, what kind of message do we want to send? Because what we're creating in our home is the message that the future will have of
I think we might have just lost Kimberly for a minute, so hopefully she'll come back in. I know she's in Washington, D.C., very far, far away from us. If any of you are listening to some of the messages today, I'd love to have you unmute and share some of your favorite takeaways. Oh, she's back. Kimberly, let's unmute you. We lost you for just a moment, but go ahead and do your screen share again, and I will make you the spotlight video again. When we lose you, we'll just get you back on again. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm sorry, guys, being in DC and we're at this townhome, and it's not the best picture or lighting, and obviously not the best internet. But we will carry on and persevere, because that's what we do as women. That's so right. I'm going to go to the first lesson that I lost. I have plenty of lessons that I want to go through, and I'm going to start with the first one, which is writing on the wall. And I want you to know that every lesson that I have learned as a mother has been learned from my children. So my children have been teachers as much as I have taught and nurtured them. So one of the things that I learned was when my son, you can see him there waving his hand, that's my oldest, he's now 32. And when he was about that age right there, 4 years old, he was driving me literally crazy because he was constantly writing on the walls. And I would go in there and I'm looking at, he's got whole sentences on the walls. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. And I'm wiping it off. He's 3 and 4 years old and he's writing full sentences on the walls. He was my oldest. In my defense, I did not know this was unusual for a 3 or 4 year old child to write complete sentences on the wall or anywhere. All I could think was, this child is writing on the wall. And I remember one day, as I was just so frustrated, and I'm like, and I'm in there and I'm washing off the wall, and just something hit me. And it was this thought that someday I will not have these words, these handprints, these markings to wash off the walls. And I will hunger for the days when I was sitting there scrubbing those walls. And that was a major mom altering moment for me, because I realized how short time was. I mean, this is what my family looked like at the time. So I was obviously a very busy mom, and I was pregnant. You can't see it, but I'm pregnant with our 4th child there. So I had a pretty busy life, and my husband was working a lot, and I wasn't a single mom, but it seemed like it at times because he was gone so much. And I thought in the blink of an eye, these kids are gone. And I wanted to make every moment count. And there were days when I just thought I would rip my hair out because of what was going on. And I'm so tired, and everything there was so much to do. And rooms to clean up and kids to train, and it was just so much. And I just thought, oh, I just can't do another day. And then I thought again, I remembered those handprints, and I said, someday those handprints aren't going to be there, and I'm going to wish they were. Well, I want you to know that in hindsight, I'm now 52 years old, and my youngest is 14, and I really miss those handprints. Because the time really does fly really fast. And now I'm a grandma. I got my first grandchildren this year, and I'm so excited to see those little handprints and I'm like, right on my wall. Put your handprints on the wall. And it really changes you when you can see from where you are now and go back and just say, treasure those moments. Treasure every one of those days, because it's gone so fast. The next mom altering moment that I had, I wanted to measure understanding. I think measuring understanding is really important. We have in our brains a frontal lobe. And the frontal lobe is the part of our brains that is developed the last, which I think must be one of those jokes that God has, because it's the one that's the decision making, that determines, what's right, what's wrong, is this really a good idea, and why does he wait till the last minute to create that, make that one kick in? But it kind of helps you understand why children do the things that they do, and you're like, what are you doing? But we need to remember that when our children are doing things, we cannot measure their understanding against our understanding. Because we've been alive a lot longer, we have greater wisdom, knowledge, and they don't understand the way we understand. And the mom altering moment for me when I realized that was when my son on the left there, Noah, not the one with his tongue sticking out, the other one, he was about that age, 3-4 years old, and I had wanted to try and figure out a way to keep their room clean. And I thought, okay, I'm just gonna go to the store, I'm gonna buy all these buckets, and I'm gonna organize their room, and put everything on there. The blocks are here, the puzzles are here, and then all they have to do is just put things in there. And so I got it all organized, I put it all away, and it looked so nice and pretty. And I went in the next day and stuff was everywhere. I'm like, what is going on? And I'm like, and I'm like, Noah, what did you do? I do not understand. Why does your room look like this? I went through all this trouble. I spent all this money. I put all this organization. All you have to do is take the toys and put them in the buckets. Look, you take the puzzles and put them in this bucket. You pick up the crayons and you put them in this bucket. It's not that hard. Why can you not just do this? Help me here. And he just looked up at me with this sweet little face, just like the one there. And he said, Mommy, I can't read. I was like, okay, here I am going through all this trouble. And my son cannot read the signs. So I got wise and I made pictures, little pictures of duplo blocks, little pictures of the puzzles. And he actually did pretty darn good after that. But that was a really major mom altering moment for me, because I realized we cannot measure our understanding with theirs. It just doesn't measure up. So here's one that I thought was, this one was a really tough lesson to learn. And it's still something that I struggle with, because I've always have like 100 things going on in my mind, and I'm over here, I'm over there. So while I'm having conversations, I'll be like doing something, and yes. Well, my daughter, when we went to Hawaii, we lived in Hawaii for 3 years, and she did a lot of babysitting in our neighborhood. And she came home one day, and she said, oh, I just love this woman. I can't remember her name. I'll just call her Mrs. Jones, because I can't remember. And she said, I just love Mrs. Jones. She's such an amazing mother. And she said, so good with her son. And I said, well, what is it that makes her such a good mom, honey? And she said, oh, Mom, she's the mother that looks. And I said, what do you mean the mother that looks? And she said, here's this little boy. He's 3 years old. He is a handful, and I know because I ran into him. And he's just all over the place. And she said, she'll be in the middle of talking to me and explain to me what needs to be done. And her son will say, Mommy. And she just stops right what she's doing, and she looks at her son, and she says, yes, honey. And she said, Mom, she looks, and she listens. And I thought, well, uh, don't, don't I, don't I look and listen? Oh no, you're always doing something else when you're talking to me. I mean, I guess you're paying attention to me, but it'd be nice if you looked. And so I decided right then and there, I want to be the mother who looks. If that is what helps my children understand that I love them and I care what they have to say, I want to be the mother who looks. And that is something that, as I said, is a constant challenge for me. But it has made a huge difference. When I take the time to look at my children when they're talking to me, they really feel like I care what they have to say. And that develops a conversation and a relationship that you're going to need later. What matters most? This was a good lesson. My daughter there on the left, in the other picture, she is the one in white because she was the only girl for a long time. I did have a good little baby back there, but she was the only girl for a long time. And when my daughter was in 4th grade, she came home with this backpack full of books. I don't know how she carried it off of the bus, but somehow she did. And she'd come home, and as soon as she came home, they'd get off the bus around 4 o'clock, and she got off the bus, she'd sit down at the dining room table, and she would immediately start working on her homework. Now, this wasn't just us, hey, Cassie, go do your homework. This was us sitting down with her to help her with her homework. And she wasn't getting to bed until like 10 o'clock at night sometimes. And I'm like, she's in 5th grade, 5th grade. And I'm like, this is, after a while, we're 2 or 3 weeks of us doing this. I'm like, wait a second. What is going on here? Well, why does my daughter have this much homework? What are they doing all day in school? And then I thought, I don't cut into their time. Why are they cutting into my time? And if they need me to do all the teaching, then what am I sending them to school for? maybe they need to get a new job. I don't understand. And so I went to school. I sent a note to my daughter, with my daughter to school, and she gave it to her teacher. And the note just simply said that my daughter is no longer going to be doing this much homework. I authorized her 30 minutes of homework a day, and not busy work. If it's busy work, don't even bother sending it home. And if it can't be done in the 30 minutes, then she's not doing it. I'm just letting you know. I don't cut into your time. Don't cut into my time. I want to spend time with my daughter. And it was killing her. I mean, her whole entire emotional psyche was just collapsing because she just felt like such a failure in this. She had no time to just be a kid. And all the church activities were like revolved around homework. It was insane. So the teacher called me, obviously, the next day and asked if she could meet with me. And so I said, absolutely. And so I went in, and she said, I got your note, and I don't understand where you're coming from, and I'm having a really hard time with this because, the kids have to do homework. And I said, well, I understand that there's some homework that will need to be done if there's something she didn't finish in class for some reason, or she's got a project to work on, or she needs to study for a spelling test. That's fine. There's 30 minutes to do that, and I'll totally allot that time. And she said, well, it could take more than 30 minutes. I said, well, then I guess she's not going to do it. Well, if she doesn't do her homework, then she'll fail. Well, then fail her. What? I just got up, fell off her chair there. And I said, my daughter is more important to me than this homework. I don't understand. She said, but education is the most important thing. And I said, no, ma'am, I do not believe that education is the most important thing. And she's like, well, then what is? And I said, my daughter is the most important thing. Her knowledge that she is a daughter of God, first and foremost, that is important to me. That she knows that her family loves her unconditionally. That she understands right from wrong, good and bad, and the consequences that come from those things. Then we'll talk about reading, writing, math, and arithmetic. I'm all good. I'm all good with that. Reading, writing, math, history. Okay, that comes fourth on the list. And she was just like beside herself. And she said, this makes no sense to me whatsoever. Your daughter needs to do this because she needs to get a good education. And education is everything. And I said, ma'am, if education was everything, then I think we would be heralding Ted Kaczynski, a.k.a. the Unabomber, for being the smartest man in the world, instead of putting him in prison for blowing people up with his intelligence. She didn't really know what to say after that, but she did look at me and she said, well, all the other mothers. And I said, they're not my children. So whatever those other mothers think, that's up to them. And she said, well, if your daughter isn't going to do the homework, then they're not going to want their kids to do the homework. And I said, well, then maybe you should consider lessening your homework schedule. So the irony of this is she did limit her homework schedule, and all of the other parents sent her notes saying how grateful they were that they had more time with their children. I'm just saying. Okay, so we need to consider what matters most. Do they really need to do that homework? Do they really need to get A's? And we also need to remember what it is we're asking them when we say get good grades. Because a lot of the things that they're being graded on are things that we would go, what? I'll get back to that later. Okay, so the next one, time well spent. Now, our family has been all over the country. My husband's in the military, so we've seen the world simply by living in the world. But we have had some really amazing adventures. And I will tell you that of all the places we have been, the amusement parks, Niagara Falls, all the places we have been, when I ask the kids, what is the vacation that you remember the most, the time best spent? They say two things. Our vacation in the motorhome, where we went across country and just saw everything, and there were a lot of us packed in that motorhome. And Mormon Rocks. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but there's a place in San Bernardino, and we lived there, and called Mormon Rocks because it was a place that was settled by the Mormon Battalion, and they set it up to be a fort. And now it's just this big area of rocks that you can climb, and these cliffs. It's beautiful. And we just took a lunch, put on some backpacks, carried the kids, and we went out. And when I think of the time of vacation, the time that we were out together that I remember most, that's the one. And it didn't cost me anything. So we need to consider the time that we're spending, the time that we're reading with our children. There is power in stories. The conversations that we have at the dinner table, when we have this table talk conversation, the time that we spend baking cookies. It's not about cookies. It's about the time that we spend together. It's not about making dinner. It's not about cleaning up after dinner. We always clean up to dinner after dinner as a family. We don't have assignments where we send, you're in charge of dishes now, because it's like they're sent into outer Siberia while all the rest of the family is having fun. But if all of us pitch in together, then we're all done in like 15 minutes. So we can all go do what we want or read stories together. And that has been an incredible gift to our family, because it has given us more time, and no one has to be in Siberia now, especially Mom, which is kind of pretty cool. Okay, so be at the crossroads. I know we've all heard this, but I'm going to introduce some things that about this that I think we really need to be aware of. If we are not at the crossroads, other people will be. If we are not having important conversations with our children about sex, about gender, about you name it, they're going to get it from somewhere else. And you may not know this, but our children are being taught a lot of crazy things in school. There are things that are being promoted. They're promoting white privilege. They're teaching our kids that were born racists, we just don't know it, and they're trying to teach them how to recognize that they're racists. They're teaching them comprehensive sex education and showing them how to get pleasure as young as kindergarten, first, second, third grade. And moms don't know this. The books that are in their children's schools, I had a mom who came to me just in tears and said, I don't know how to deal with this, but I've got to do something. Her daughter, who was 10 years old in 5th grade, her teacher had put a library, a bunch of books into a classroom library. And because she said the kids were at a higher reading level. Well, when she sent the note home to the parents, they're thinking, oh, my child is so smart, this is awesome. But she neglected to explain what higher reading level means. And as parents, we need to be aware that that's a catchphrase now, because higher reading level doesn't mean Black Beauty and all the classics that we're used to. It is full of graphic sexual content that we would just be shocked if we saw it, read it, or heard it. This little girl came home from school absolutely traumatized because one of the boys in class was reading a passage out of one of the books in her 5th grade class school library that was a graphic rape scene of a 12-year-old girl. And she took it all the way to the school board, and she had the book removed from the school. But here's the important thing here. Her daughter came home traumatized. One, her mother recognized there was a difference in her disposition because they had a relationship. Two, her daughter felt that she could come and talk to her about it because her mom had already opened up the doors and had conversations where she said, if there's ever anything that makes you feel uncomfortable or dark, you come and talk to mom about it, and let's work through it. And so she felt comfortable coming and talking to her mom. These are conversations we have got to have with our children because we are living in a dark world that's getting darker every day. And we cannot send them out unarmed. And that armor that we send them is the foundation, the protection, the safety that they have at home, that they know they can come and talk to us and that they can come home and be safe. How I learned this lesson was from this. This is a worksheet that is called they reference it as a classic representation of how to teach our children how to recognize their gender preferences and identity. This is meant specifically for elementary school. They don't use this in middle school and high school because they got plenty of other things that they're using at a higher level to teach our children these things. This is what they are giving out to children in kindergarten, first, second, and third grade. That's primarily where they focus this worksheet. It was sent out. I live in Omaha, Nebraska, and in Papillion, in a very conservative area south of Omaha. The whole entire state is largely conservative and very values oriented. And this was sent out in our schools, every one of them. It has been sent out all over Nebraska schools. It's been sent out in schools all over the country. Your children have most probably seen this or heard about it. They're talking about gender identity in school. They are using a beloved story character from a storybook our children are familiar with because they say that this is a great way to help younger children understand with something that they recognize. This is something we need to be aware of. Our children are being taught these things. We need to be aware. We need to be having conversations. And when they come home from school, we need to be asking questions. So how was your day? What did you talk about? We need to be opening up their school books when they come home, reading them and seeing what's in there. We need to be going in and visiting their classrooms. You have every right as a parent to sit in the back of the room. They'll try and tell you you don't, but you absolutely do. You don't even have to have children in the school to go sit in there. You are a taxpayer. You're paying for that school. They work for you. All you have to do is go into the office, sign the consent form to go in, and sit in the classroom. Teachers don't like it, but this is your right as a parent because you are entrusting your children to that school and those teachers who are with them during that time. You have the right to be there. You have a right to know what's going on. And this is something that's going on. Another lesson that I learned is atmosphere. One of the things that made my sister and I very different is she was adamant that her house had to be clean all the time. And I just wanted a place where people felt welcome. And maybe that means it's cluttered sometimes, a lot of times. But the time that we spend together, I mean, I like things neat and organized, don't get me wrong, and I like things clean. But right now, my house is an absolute ransacked mess. Because I am in the middle of transitioning out my life from being a mom that homeschools 8 children to being a grandma that doesn't really homeschool anybody right now. And I'm rearranging my life, and it's a mess. But this is my haven. This is my home library. And if we can keep our homes neat and organized as much as possible, not every day, every moment of the day, obviously, but a place where we feel we can be calm. Because I'll tell you, when I sit at my office, if my office is a mess, I can't function. So if it's that way just in my office, imagine in our home. When I wake up in the morning and I see the kitchen a mess, it messes up my whole entire day. So to take that time the night before, unless the night before I say, okay, I know the dishes are there, I know they're going to be there in the morning, and that's okay because I'm going to get them in the morning. Make that conscious decision beforehand. But this is just a representation of the atmosphere that I try and create in my home. my own library where children can go and get books, or we can sit down and read together, the books that I have on the shelves, the music that I play in our home. And just ask any of my children right now, and they know every word to The Greatest Showman soundtrack because it is on constant repeat on my Alexa. The media that we allow into our home, the beauty that we create, the messages that we give them through our words are good, but the messages that we give through the environment that we create are powerful. And combined, they solidify a foundation that will build confidence in our children, a safe place. And I cannot stress enough how important it is that we create safe, not spaces, safe places where our children can come. We don't want our children to avoid struggles and trials, because that's what's a part of this life. Our job is to help them navigate through them. So I create safe places where my children can come back to and help them learn how to stand up to and navigate through the difficult challenges, so they don't need safe spaces when they go out in the world. So in my final thoughts, I just want to read a quote from Jane Clayson Johnson, because what we're creating is a nation. I want you to remember this, please, if you remember nothing else. A nation is but a magnified home. And everything that we're creating in our home is shaping the future of our nation. If we want to know what America is going to look like in 10, 15, 20 years, look at the homes of America today, and that is where we will be. That is how powerful our influence is. So when you're wiping that juice off the wall and you're singing that lullaby that you don't get a Grammy for singing the lullaby, and Martha Stewart is going to come by and go, oh, wow, give you, accolades for how your house looks. And probably a good portion of your life, you'll feel like you are underappreciated and unrecognized in your own home, where the people around you matter to you most. But I want you to know that what you're doing does not go unnoticed. I have 8 very amazing children. There have been plenty of trials. There have been plenty of tears. But today, when we did our national press conference to release this Declaration of Mothers, they were all online watching their mother. And they all sent me texts or phone calls. We have family texts that we continue to stay connected back and forth. My kids get on in Skype to play games. We have a family connection that a lot of people would just die to have. We can all create that. We create it by learning these lessons and creating that environment where they want to come back to. Loving our children, being the mother that looks. Jane Clayson Johnson left the most considered prestigious job, being the anchor for the CBS morning show, to be a full-time mom. And everybody kept asking her, why would you do that? And she said, because that's where my greatest gifts should be put. She said, is there any other person who can bring more happiness to her young charges, has more significance in another's life, or has the potential to leave a greater legacy for those who come after her than a mother? And I would say no. So embrace who you are, who you were meant to be. For you carry the title of the most powerful word in the world, mother. Wear it proudly, carry your head high, and when you tuck your little ones into bed at night, know that you are changing the world. Thank you.